Oh shoot, we back. And I got a guest today, Uncle Fulio, coming out of the hiatus. How you been, brother?
Killing OG, killing man. Taking some time off. Getting some things right. But I'm back. I'm ready to talk Knicks basketball, man. Let's do it.
Nah, man, we missed you. We missed you.
Yes,
We,
sir.
we had our little communications on through text, every now and again when something popped off. But I want to get your takes on all of it. Um Chat, salute to you guys. Replay gang, salute to you guys. This is my new segment, one on one. So got my first guest, Josh, Uncle Fulio. We're gonna talk about everything that's gone on over the off season. Hear what Josh has to say about it. Um, I'm trying to think. We should probably start from the beginning, pretty much. I think maybe the Obi trade would that be the first domino to have fallen, or
Yeah,
was there
yeah.
something before then?
No, that sounds about right. The OB trade, I think, is when everything started to pop off, or the Knicks started getting their roster together. Josh Hart re-signing. I'm not sure which one came first. Honestly, everything was just
I th-
happening so
I think
whirlwind.
I think the talks of Josh Hart was always out there,
Hmm.
but the official signing came later. And we're gonna get to Josh Hart because I know you got a lot to say about that. That's the main thing I've been waiting to get you on camera so we could talk about it. But let's start with the Obi trade. What was your thoughts? How'd you feel, especially with the return? How'd you feel? Um, give it up. What'd you think?
So first and foremost, Tony, thank you again. I know it's been a minute since I've been on with the MBK family. I had a lot of personal things going on, and thank you to the people that reached out, Tony, Ron from Still Nick fans, and just everyone who reached out to me, seeing how I was doing during this period of time while I was taking my little hiatus. Definitely meant a lot, and I'm glad to be back on. Wow, Obi Toppin. So about Obi, I think that this was on the radar for the Knicks. I think they were always considering doing this. I think like I said last offseason, and which me and you and Sim were discussing, I think the Knicks had to make a choice between Obi and Randall. They just had to, because you got a guy you drafted number 8 overall to be your future power forward, right? And, everyone was saying Knicks should have drafted Halliburton in that draft, and the other draft picks out there. I just think the writing was on the wall. The Knicks had to make a decision, and unfortunately, for some people, it had to be Obi. Right, with Randall playing the way he's playing, you're talking about two-time All Star, two-time All NBA. Since he's been on the Knicks, and to me, I think Julius Randle already is in the conversation for one of the greatest Knicks of all time. But that's we're not. I'm not even going to go there with that part. The Knicks, I think,
Sounds
made
like you got your controversy show in the chamber already, but
Yeah, I mean, I've always been saying this, but listen, the Knicks had to make a choice, and I think with the revelation, with the speculation surrounding that little audio clip that came out of Obi arguing with Tibbs after one of the Miami games and whatnot, and obviously Obi being frustrated on the bench with his lack of playing time, this was going to happen, and the Knicks had to make a decision, and I think they made the correct one, in my opinion. Sucks to see Obi go. Sucks to see him go to the Indiana Pacers, a team in which the Knicks have been rivals with for a very, very long time. But it's something that the Knicks had to do, and I think they made the best decision for the organization.
best decision in moving him. But what about the return? Any gripes on 2 second rounders, or do you think that's about where his value was? Do you think they could have got more shopping him throughout the league, or you think it was them kind of looking out for him, giving him a place maybe potentially where he wanted to go? What's your thoughts on that?
I think the Knicks did whatever they had to do, right? And what that means is I think the 2 second round picks that they got back, I don't think they would have gotten any more for Obi Toppin. Personally, I would have put Obi in a trade for a bigger fish, like a bigger star, but the Knicks weren't ready to make that move at the time. And I don't think, I think if it was available, the Knicks would have actually did it. And I just don't think it was available at the time. So I think 2 second round picks is right about what the Knicks were going to get for Obi Toppin. Um, you know, we can always want more, right? But I think because of his lack of playing time, um, I think that's probably the best we were going to get for Obi Toppin in the moment. The Knicks did what they had to do.
No doubt, no doubt. All right, let's get into the bread and butter. I think the heated topic. Um, the Josh Hart extension or yeah, extension. Uh, I love the deal. We talked about it. Probably this might have been the last time you and I spoke when I said I think he'll opt in. You know what I mean, and then get the extension as opposed to opting out and trying to be signed. Um, and the money was right about where I thought it was gonna be. But you don't like that money. You think he's
No.
overpaid. You think they gave him too much. Um, Go ahead, plead your case, and I will retort where I feel I need to.
Yeah, well, first I want to say I like Josh Hart. It's undisputed the impact that he had on the team last season. Once we got him, it just kind of seemed like if it was a repeat or a little bit of the parallel was there compared to when we got Derrick Rose the previous season, right, or a couple seasons before that when we got Derrick Rose, and he helped us get to that playoffs against Atlanta. Um, so I think the parallels are there in that regard. And Josh Hart, again, is a player that I like. I think continuity says a lot. That's the positive that I would say. I definitely wanted to bring Josh Hart back. It's not like I wanted to see Josh Hart just go, right? But I do believe $20 million a year for a player that does not shoot the ball as much. First of all, we're talking about a guard or wing player that does not put the ball in the hole, period. Coming off your bench, being the highest paid player off your bench, $20 million a season, I think that is an overpay. Now the Knicks were a little bit out leveraged in the situation. Like I said, we were arguing about this before. They made the trade for him. They gave up a first round pick for him. I said the Knicks better re-sign Josh Hart because if not, they just gave up a first round pick for a rental player. So I think they were out leveraged in that standpoint. And the fact that we all know the connection with Jalen Brunson is there, the Villanova connection, and what Josh Hart did for this team last season during the regular season, the Knicks were out leveraged in negotiations. However, $20 million for a guard or a wing player coming off your bench that does not shoot the ball, right? Gives us defense and rebounding, but I just think, I don't think any team around the NBA would have gave Josh Hart $20 million a season. Despite him opting in, helping the Knicks with that $12.5 million or $12.9 million mid-level exception to sign Dante DiVincenzo, that's what the opt-in was for. Despite that, I still think $20 million a season is too much for Josh Hart. And at this point, you look at a player like Emmanuel Quickly, who was no doubt the best player off the Knicks bench last season. We might have trouble bringing him back. And the Knicks still are missing a key component, which I think was, in my opinion, the biggest thing that they were missing last season during the playoffs, and that was ball handling. And Josh Hart does not provide that. Josh Hart provides defense, hustle, rebounding, but I think from the guard or wing position, you need to be able to put the ball in the hole and be able to create your own shot, and Josh Hart doesn't do that.
So here's the thing. You mentioned things he doesn't do great as the reason to not he doesn't deserve that amount of money. But I think they're paying him for the things that he does do great. All those things that you mentioned. Um Rebounding at the position, number one. Number one in the league. You know what I mean? Now this is something that he brings. No matter where he is, he's gonna get 5, 6, 7 rebounds and potentially double digit rebounds on any given game. Um Impact of winning. I should leave that for last because I think that's the main piece. Like it's ironic because we were supposed to have this discussion a week ago, I believe. And a week ago, Kerr hadn't made those statements. But this is things that we talked about in the past about his impact on winning. And then it's ironic that Kerr comes out and he talks about Josh Hart and says the same exact thing when they're talking about the position, you know, and his positioning is winner. Like, so I just thought it was perfect timing for Kerr to kind of say what, you know, me, Sim, a lot of other people have been saying. Like, it's more than just it's less about what he doesn't do, it's more about what he does do. The defensive effort and execution is there night in, night out. Um damn near any position, maybe not center, but you know, in a flash, he can guard at any position. Basketball IQ, hustle. Hustle is another big one because it's contagious. Like we seen it from his first game on the Knicks, diving on the ball for loose balls. Next thing you know, you see Randall dive on the ball a couple plays later. I don't know if we see that from Randall, if he don't see that from Hart. I think it's contagious. So I think his impact is the reason he's worth that 20 million. And then the other big thing is him opting in, essentially opting in, taking a pay cut for 1 year to give us the room to bring in an added piece in Dante DiVincenzo. So, like the same way you're using it as a negative that it may impact us dealing with quickly in the future, which I actually disagree. Maybe we'll talk about that later. But he took less money so that we could bring in a Dante DiVincenzo, who we're going to talk about him as well. I think is going to be a huge impact on his team. You know what I mean? And actually makes up for the deficiencies that Hart has in the shooting department. Definitely more of a creator, self-creator. So it's like his weaknesses are DiVincenzo's strengths and vice versa.
So here's what I will say. And the biggest difference between Team USA and the Knicks is Team USA is not paying him $20 million a season.
No. You're right. But I'm talking about exactly what he said. It don't matter about him getting paid or not getting paid, or if he's in a rec room or the Drew League or an NBA team or the backyard. He's gonna play like that wherever he is. That's who he is.
But I thought the discussion was around the contract, and I think that's what we're talking about. I led off. I started talking about when I first talked about Josh Hart. I said that I would love to have Josh Hart back. Everything, the things that you mentioned, the impact on winning, all that stuff. I would love to have Josh Hart back. So that's not an area of contention for me, right? I'm not a person that's saying I want to see Josh Hart leave. There's no question what Josh Hart brings to the table with all the things that you mentioned. But you bring up Team USA and the impact that on Team USA. Right. But the difference is Team USA is not paying him $20 million a season, first of all. Second of all, Team USA has a roster with guys who can handle the basketball, who can dribble. You got Brunson, you got Ingram now coming off the bench. You got Anthony Edwards in the starting lineup. These are guards and wings who can be able to handle the basketball and create their own shot. So having Josh Hart there is an addition to what they have. The Knicks do not have that.
Do you think we're going to use Hart as a primary ball handler?
No, but that's the problem, Tony. But that's the problem. The Knicks. Hold on, let me finish real quick. The Knicks are missing players like that. The only two guard and wing, two guards / wing players that the Knicks have that are able to create their own shot, dribble, pull up off the dribble is Jalen Brunson and Emmanuel Quickly. Outside of that, they don't have anybody else that can do that. You brought up Dante DiVincenzo, who I think is going to be an important piece, but he's not even bringing that. So let's say, he did take a pay cut in year number one to help us bring in and use the 12.9 non-tax mid-level exception on Dante DiVincenzo. He's not even bringing that. So to me, I just think the Knicks could have paid less for him. I think no other team around the NBA would have given Josh Hart that money, and the Knicks are still, to this day, with the current roster they have, I love the continuity that they brought back Josh Hart, but still, even though they're paying him $20 million a season, they're still missing that key piece, whether it be coming off the bench and the starting lineup. They still don't have it. So that's where I'm coming from in regards to him being overpaid. I like the fact that they brought him back. I love the continuity because that's going to mean a lot down the road. But I just still think the Knicks need another guard / wing that can create their own shot effectively and pull up off the dribble. The Knicks don't have that outside of Brunson and Quickly. And we might lose quickly now because of the deal with Josh Hart.
I disagree in your DiVincenzo take because I think he can create for himself and he can create for others. I think he can handle the ball as well. Now, so I disagree. Let's just say we'll wait and see on that what he does and what he's able to do here.
Well, what has he done? What has Dante DiVincenzo done in his time in the NBA? Like, he is a shooter. He is someone that plays off the ball. You're not giving Dante DiVincenzo the ball, telling him to set up your offense or create off the dribble or pull up.
I'm
That's
not
not
saying
Dante DiVincenzo's game.
running necessarily leading the offense. What I'm saying is he's able to create his own shot and he's able to create shots for others. He's a decent assist guy, like, and that's more about basketball IQ, making the right reads. So IQ is gonna make you a good assist guy, and his you saying he's a suspect ball handler? I would
No,
argue
what I'm saying
his
is
addition, he's probably the third guy at that ball handling position.
I, what I'm saying. I'm not saying Dante DiVincenzo is a weak ball handler. I'm not saying Josh Hart is a weak ball handler. What I'm saying is Dante DiVincenzo's game is not it's not a game in which you can give him the ball. He can be able to break his man down, go off the dribble, and create his own shot. That's not his game. His game is playing off the ball, whether it be going around screens and for someone to set him up so he can do a catch and shoot or do things like that. And he definitely does help us defensively as well. I'm saying for the Knicks, specifically for our team and our lineup construction, outside of Brunson and Quickly, those two guys from the guard or wing position, their game, break people down off the dribble, create their own shots, take shots off the dribble, take shots pulling up. Those are the only two players we have from a guard or wing that can do that. Josh Hart is not giving us that, nor is Dante DiVincenzo. That's not
But
their
we
game.
don't. My argument is we don't need it from Josh Hart. What we need from Josh Hart is what Josh Hart does. I
Well,
think
who else is going to give us
Dante DiVincenzo will be able to add in those categories. I think Randall does that. I know you specified wing and guard, but Randall does that. So with Randall doing that and Brunson doing that, how many other people are you think going to even have those opportunities? I think the second unit is where those opportunities are going to come, where Quickly is there to do that. DiVincenzo is now there to do that. So I think we have two guys in both units that can create and basically dominate the majority of the ball handling and decision making. We need the other guys to finish and do what they do.
Listen, I agree. We're not going to get that from Josh Hart. We're saying the same thing. We're not going to get that from Josh Hart. That's a part of the problem. They gave him $20 million a year for him not to be able to provide that off the bench. You look around the NBA, look at okay, forget about ball handling for a second. Let's just take that out the equation. Look around the NBA and look at a lot of bench contracts, because I see people in the chat saying, well, 20 million is the new 13 million around the NBA. And look at the contracts that are given out around the NBA off for players that are coming off the bench that are making 20-something million dollars, and look at their games and compare that to Josh Hart. Like Dylan Brooks is one people like to throw out there, right? Dylan Brooks, okay, maybe he's not going to provide the ball handling, but he takes twice as many shots as Josh Hart. Josh Hart doesn't even take shots. He doesn't even shoot the ball. So again, I just think. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I don't think we need him. I mean, granted, it's been times, especially in this last playoffs, where he turned down shots, and it can be a detriment. But for the majority of his tenure here, which hasn't been long, that wasn't a detriment for the team. Him turning down shots. He actually was
in the Miami series. It was. Look how they defended us.
I said specifically in the Miami series. Yes, correct. But in the long term, throughout his tenure, that's a small part of the long term of his tenure. So we can't put that on like this is who he is. If you
he's
look
only
at
been here for one season, Tony.
That's my point. But you're looking at one series. Did he turn down those same shots in the first series?
Yes. He's turned them down throughout the entire season.
I disagree. I think he shot open shots. When people dared him to shoot, he shot the ball, and he shot the ball well. Like
that is not true. Josh Hart is not going to be the type of person to take 12 shots a game. Josh Hart is going to shoot between 6-7 shots a game, right? Which maybe that's all he is going to do. That's
but we don't need him to.
I just don't think that's. But and that's the point. I don't think that's $20 million worth. I think if you're going to pay somebody $20 million a season, they have to be able to at least shoot the ball twice as much as that.
I mean, there's guys getting paid $20 million that the only thing they want to do is shoot the ball. They don't want to rebound. So those are the bad contracts.
Not in my opinion. I think the shooting is more valuable than everything else that you.
So a shooter who is a non-defender, non-dribbler, non-creator, non-defender, but all he does is shoot is more valuable than Josh Hart.
Shooting, when I say shooting, I'm not just talking about like the number of field goal attempts per game, right? I think that's a part of it. What I'm talking about in regards to shooting is the ability to create with those shots and to be able to create off the dribble. That's what I'm talking about collectively when I'm talking about. Josh Hart doesn't give us either one of those things. Look around the NBA, like you said, look at the contracts and look at the players that are coming
What's a
off the bench.
better contract right now? Evan Fournier or Josh Hart?
I think both are bad. I think both are bad. I think both are. And when I say bad, I mean it's overpaid. I don't think so. And another thing I want to clarify: I don't think the Josh Hart contract is what's the word I like to use? It's not catastrophic. I don't think what we're paying Josh Hart is going to be completely catastrophic and it's going to hurt us down the road. I still think it's a tradable contract, it's movable, but I do see the potential if it doesn't work out that it could end up like a Evan Fournier type of situation for different reasons. My Fournier, is a shooter, and we could have used it. Obviously, clearly, I think we can agree on that. We could have used some of what Fournier brings us to the table, but I do see specific situations where the Knicks are going to need ball handling, and they're not going to be able to get it from a player who's going to be the highest paid player off their bench. They're not going to be able to get that ball handling. I just really feel like
from him specifically, I agree.
Correct.
But
Correct.
his value on the court is still going to be there as long as somebody else on the court is the primary ball handler.
But he's your highest paid player off the bench now.
So what?
No, what do you mean? So what?
And technically not yet. he's on his 12 point whatever this year. Remember he opted in. So technically he's not our highest paid bench player.
So Fournier, Fournier, that's your argument. That's where you're going because he's
I'm just saying. I'm just saying technically he's not. And I feel like if we extend quickly, which I'm still holding out hopes that we do. I know a lot of people think it's not going to happen, or he's not going to be with us past this year. I think he will. I think he'll get paid more, deservedly so.
Okay, and that's fair. And that's fair. I mean, I still think, but think about that for a second. Let's assume that Emmanuel quickly makes $25 million a season, and we're able to extend him. Right, that is $45 million you have coming off your bench, right? For one player who is going to be a ball handler, who's going to be worth that money, who's a potential 6 Man of the Year candidate, and another player who doesn't bring that. $45 million coming off your bench.
Josh, you're stuck on what they don't do. Value what they do.
I am
value what he does.
I'm saying that's not worth $1 million a season. I'm just saying that's not
obviously. I mean, the chat disagrees with you. Obviously, the Knicks agree with you because they gave it up. And even when I made the argument, early on before me saying he should opt in, look at the totality. Look at it as the 5-year instead of the 4-year. Let's also talk about that last year being a team option, which is a benefit on the Knicks. So to me, they did the right thing. They hit the. I think they were spot on in how they handled it, how they negotiated it. It's not a if they decided they wanted to move Josh Hart in the future, or if they had to include him in a bigger deal, you know what I mean, because of that salary, that's another reason why it would help. And I don't think another team is going to be looking at him and saying, oh, he's not worth that money because of what he don't do. They're going to be looking at what he brings to the table and say, yeah, we'll take him and him and him for such star or whatever star.
Well, the only precedent that I have to go off the count of that last point is we said the same thing about Evan Fournier. He's still on the team. And I'm not gonna.
I did.
Right. But listen, I'm not going to pin the nail on that because I still believe before the trade deadline, Evan Fournier would be valuable to a team, whether he's playing or not. So I'm not going to hang my hat on that one, right? I'm not, right? But that's just something I have to counter that. Well, you say, well, it's a tradable contract, and I never look at the length of the contract. I don't really focus on that as much because I still think Josh Hart is a piece that the Knicks should have on the team. right? So I'm not knocking the Knicks on that, right? Team option, great, right? I'm not knocking that. I'm talking specifically about the average annual value, and to me, a guard or wing who is coming off your bench, who is one not going to put the ball in the hole at the level, at the level where the top paid bench players in the league are going to do so. That's number one. Number two, he is not going to be a primary ball handler off the bench. To me, I just think $20 million a year, including everything else that he does, the rebounding and defense and all that stuff that we say. To me, I just don't think $20 million a year is worth it. I think Josh Hart is better suited making around $15 million a year. And we're talking about a $5 million difference, right? Which again is not catastrophic for the Knicks, and I don't want to just completely bash the Knicks for this move. I just think that he is overpaid, and there might be a potential, right? I know Knicks fans, some of the people in the chat can't see it right now, where we are going to need that ball handling. And the last thing I'll say about this, if you look in the playoffs last season, people want to talk all they want about Emmanuel Quickley and what Emmanuel Quickley did not do in that series against Cleveland. We needed Emmanuel Quickley in that Miami Heat series for ball handling purposes, not for the shooting or in the lack thereof. The Knicks didn't have any ball handlers, anybody from the guard or wing spot that can dribble the basketball, or let me not say dribble, that can be able to play make and create off the dribble in that Miami Heat series. That's why they defended the Knicks the way they did when they left Josh Hart open and they dared him to shoot. It hampered our offense. We need more ball handling.
And even if he, I think he would have been valuable even if he was still playing bad, because he didn't play well in the playoffs.
100%.
You know what I mean?
100%.
But just his presence on the floor as a decoy, as a threat, a potential 100%. Threat, I think changes everything. Before we move on from Josh Hart, shout out to Keith Turner. He says Josh might be a starter. We don't know yet. Two-part question. If he starts, does that change your opinion? Because I know one of your points is he's making that off the bench. So if he's a starter, you know, that negates that particular argument. But also, I mean, there's the argument that he's better suited starting because, to my point, he won't be needed for the ball handling and playmaking. He'll be, you know what I mean? We have Brunson in the starting unit. We got Randall. So if he's playing with those two guys in particular, you know what I mean? Now, everything he brings becomes a value. You know what I mean? And his deficiencies, I mean, maybe he'll get those open threes off of those guys, and then he got to shoot them, got to make them. But, you know what I mean? All his other strengths become more valuable. What do you think about him starting and the potential of it?
Well, all it does is negate, or like at least attempt to negate one of my arguments, but I still feel the same way. I think it's a fit issue. The Knicks they need more ball handling in the starting lineup. You take away, I think Grimes is more of a ball handler than Josh Hart, and that's not even saying much, right? Because Grimes is not going to be a person to really create like that, but we've seen him do it, right? If given the opportunity, we've seen Grimes create off the dribble. You give him the ball, you know, instead of him being a spot up shooter, he can do that. But again, I don't think that helps us. And let's say you take away RJ, you move RJ to the bench and put Hart in the starting lineup at the 3. That doesn't really help us offensively, right? We're still missing ball handling in the starting lineup. So again, you know, you can say that, you know, putting them in the starting lineup negates the bench argument, but the Knicks are still going to be.
So you think our starting unit is lacking? We need a third ball handler in the starting unit
from the guard or wing position. Absolutely. If RJ Barrett was the player in which we all hope he could be, and all the RJ stands think that he could be, and you know, that stuff right there, I wouldn't even be having this conversation much. I still would think Josh Hart would be overpaid, but I wouldn't even really, you know, put it out there as much, because the Knicks will have that other ball handler. But the Knicks they're missing that. That is a big need on this team, and they don't have it. They're missing it. So yes, I still have the same argument.
When you say ball handler, what do you specifically mean? Because I mean, usage rate, RJ's third. It's high. It's been high. And it's third on the team. So I think RJ's deficiencies is less. I mean, granted, he's not like to crush you up, you know what I mean, behind the back. He's not doing Kyrie moves out there. but he handles the ball. I think his deficiencies is more with the shooting. I think that would be a more valid argument than him
So
lacking the ball handling.
so you mentioned usage rate. So let me just get this. Let me just for perspective. Let me tell everyone about this whole usage rate thing, right? Klay Thompson, when he scored 60 points on whatever 8 dribbles in that game,
That's
his usage
minimum.
rate. Huh? Say again.
That's minimal loose usage rate, right?
No, you know what his usage rate was that game that he scored 60 point on 8 dribbles?
What's that?
60%.
Mm.
60% usage rate. So I'm not talking about usage rate. Usage rate is the basically the effect on field goals, essentially. I'm not talking about usage rate. I'm talking about his game. Like his game, Josh Hart's game, it's not, you're not going to give Josh Hart the ball in a half court situation and say, go create some offense for me. Break the man down off the dribble, pull up off the dribble, and make a pass from in the half court off of your game. That's not Josh Hart's game. Josh Hart is a spark plug, and that's what he gives us.
I know,
Which
but
is
we're
good.
talking about RJ, and they
And
definitely
RJ,
do.
yep,
They definitely do that with RJ.
yeah, but
It's not to the extent of a Randall or a Brunson, but when Brunson wasn't here, it was more, and
right,
he still does that.
okay, but RJ Barrett is not good enough. He's not good enough in that regard. They attempt to use him in that way. I just don't think he's good enough. And RJ Barrett doesn't pull up. RJ Barrett is a slasher, gets to the lane, but he's not good enough in that regard. They use him in that role, but he's not good enough. So quickly to me, quickly Brunson, they're good enough to be able to do that. Break that man down off the dribble, pull up mid range, floater game for quickly. He's been really good at the mid range, and passing off of that, right, and being able to create, getting to the line, stuff like that. That's not Josh Hart's game. RJ Barrett, we want to see do that more and be better in that role, but he's not good enough.
I want
So
to I want to shout out Queen. This is off topic, but you just made me think of it. And shout out to the Queen because she's been on this stat line. My question is, what are your thoughts of IQ starting? And you know, obviously, what you thinking we need more ball handling in the starting unit. What's your thoughts of IQ starting? But I want to shout out the Queen because she keeps bringing up this stat, or it's stuck in my brain of the defensive rating of the Knicks, and every one that is high has quickly in the lineup. So whatever lineup quickly is in has a higher defensive rating than any of the lineups that quickly is out of. Um, and that was just interesting to me. So it's like it don't matter if he's with the starting unit, with the bench unit, whatever unit he's with is better defensively than it is with any other person and him out.
I would
Um,
like I would like Emmanuel quickly in the starting lineup. I think that would help the starting lineup again for all the reasons that I mentioned, the ball handling. But then again, the trade off is that off the bench we don't really have the creator. Who is going to be the creator in that second unit? We don't have that in
well,
the
I
half
mean,
court. That's my point.
our second unit is a 8 man. I mean, it's a 9 man unit anyway. So there's gonna be one of at the very least one of quickly Randall Brunson playing with them with that second unit
I mean,
at all
I think
times
that would be better.
too.
I think that would be better compared to what if we're going to assume that the lineup is going to remain the same from last season. I think that would be better. I still think we're going to need another ball handler. Though. I think that's what the team is missing. I don't think we have it on the roster. Is what ultimately what I'm trying to say. I don't think we have that on the roster. And in the playoffs, once we lost quickly, we were completely shorthanded in that regard. And you can tell by the way Miami was defending us. People want to say, Josh Hart, he runs fast break and all that. I'm cool with all of that. Come playoff time, things slow down, and that's what happened. The Knicks weren't able to get in the fast break as much against Miami, and once we lost Hart, I mean, once we lost Hart, it's just, I mean, not Hart. Once we lost quickly, we
Quickly,
were completely devastated. Not to mention some of the coaching things that Tom Thibodeau did not do. But I just really feel like this team is missing that. That's the one piece this team is missing, in my opinion. That's why the talks about Paul George and Zach LaVine and all that stuff matter, because this team would instantly get that in a return. For if we were to make a trade. But we'll see.
Dwayne Dennis got a question for you.
How many regular season wins did the Knicks get? I'm not really concerned about the regular season. I'll just say 48, 50. Knicks get to 50 wins. I'm cool. Whatever. 50 wins. I'm the way I'm looking at the Knicks
It's
right
all
now.
about the playoffs.
That's all I yeah, that's what I'm worried about. And players do have to show up. I know me and Queen have spoken about this a lot, and me and her disagree about some of the nuances of it. Players do definitely need to show up, but I think the Knicks are a playoff team. Um, how far they get in the playoffs is what I'm concerned about, and I think that's ultimately why I'm thinking the way I'm thinking about Josh Hart and his contract and what the Knicks need. I think we're still missing that.
One of the questions that I had on the Knicks and Bruises a couple weeks ago was who do you think is prime, if anybody, to take the next leap or make the biggest leap this coming year? Um, I mean, I ain't gonna lie, man. Once I seen Quick working out with Abdul right, what's his name? Chris
Sharif,
Jackson.
yeah, yeah.
Once I seen that,
Mahmoud Abdul Rauf.
there you go. Once I seen that, man, I mean, I was already saying IQ because he's in a contract year potentially. Um, if he gets the extension, he got something to to prove, and if he don't, he got something to prove, right? So I was going with IQ, but we see Grimes out there working with Penny Hardaway. Um, I think RJ finally RJ and Canada finally putting a stamp in the FIBA world where they've been struggling for years. People have been talking about the potential of Canada for years, but they couldn't. They've been getting knocked out, and they finally doing their things. And RJ's integral part of that. You know what I mean. I think there's a chance. You know what I mean. Something clicks for him. Year 5, hopefully. What's your thoughts on who do you think, if anybody? Because a lot of the people answered. I think Queen, I think Shuttle and Delusional all answered. They think no one. So no one it could be an answer. I'm going with Quickly, but who do you? And it's gonna be tough for Quickly because he coming off runner up in 6 man award. You know what I mean? Like the only way to kind of top that is getting the 6 man award, right? Or
Right.
or I don't know. It's gonna be hard to be most improved or anything of that nature because numbers is gonna have to increase a lot for that to happen. I don't think you could get those awards like off impact. You know what I mean? Like Josh Hart ain't gonna get those type of awards based off impact. It's those are numbers based. But who do you think makes the biggest leap, if anybody?
I mean, listen, I think I'm going to answer the question. I mean, I think there's a good argument for nobody. I think, it's a good argument for keeping, everyone's going to basically plateau. But I'm going to actually answer the question. I think the player who has the best chance, me and you are going to agree on on one of the first thing. I think it is Emmanuel Quickly. I just think we've seen growth from Emmanuel Quickly from year after year, all the way up. This is going to be his 4th year now. We've seen growth in every
Multiple
single
areas.
in multiple areas. But I'm looking just at the scoring, right, and his ability to put the ball in the hole. He's a hooper. He is a hooper, and I just feel like the longer he plays, and like the people he gets around, and um, you know, as long as that confidence keeps flowing, and it's only going to improve based on what we've seen. I just feel like he is going to have a season when he's going to average, I think, 20 points at a certain point. He's going to average that 20 something points off the bench. I
Mm-hmm.
just think that he has this innate ability to put the ball in the hole. And I know, Andy, salute to you, international Andy. He doesn't take the best shots, but I feel like all of that is going to improve over time. And he just
And
has the
it
ability to put
has.
the ball in the hole. And it has. And I think he's going to be able to put the ball in the hole. So I agree with you. I think it's going to be Emmanuel Quickly. Um, yeah.
All right. I ain't asked nobody this, so this is the first time this question. I'm gonna switch it up a little bit. Who would you want to see the biggest leap from? If you could just say, all right,
Mhm.
give the powers to this guy, who would you want to see the biggest leap from?
Well, you kind of confused me with the question because I know who I would want to see the biggest leap from, but then you said, give the powers. I don't know. I don't know what you meant by that.
I'm saying like if you had the power to say this guy is make it happen, you know what I mean? Like
Oh,
everything.
that's easy. That's easy for me. No question. It's RJ Barrett. No question. If RJ Barrett was the type of player who a lot of the RJ stands think he is, I'm talking about give him the ball, get the hell out the way. His ability to create, his ability to be dynamic off the dribble, his ability to pull up. If he was able to do that, I wouldn't even have a lot of the complaints that I'm having about what the Knicks don't have because it's already there. It's from a player that they drafted in the starting lineup. I think the Knicks would be much better offensively in the half court with that position at the 3 or 2, however fans want to look at it as. The Knicks would be way better if RJ Barrett was at that level. So if I had the power, I'm not God, but if I had the ability to give power to RJ Barrett, that he would be the player that I would like to see the biggest improvement from in that regard, because I think it takes the Knicks to a whole different level because they have the start lineup will be a little bit more balanced. You have that other player instead of giving Jalen Brunson the ball, 30 sometimes a game. You have a player in RJ who they can run the offense through him and Randall, and then Brunson icing on the cake. You know what I mean? Because the way I see the Knicks, when the Knicks actually are going to contend, people may disagree with me on this. I don't see Jalen Brunson doing what he does now as far as taking the amount of shots. I see Jalen Brunson being like a Drew Holiday, that type of player who, when needed, he gonna knock them shots down because we know he's efficient, right? But it's not going to be something throughout the game. We need Jalen Brunson to do that on a night in and night out basis. I would think the Knicks will get another guard or wing in here, and let's say if it is RJ, they'll have RJ Barrett doing that, him and Randall, and then Jalen Brunson to be the icing on the cake. That's the way I envision the Knicks when they contend. So to me, I think it's RJ Barrett, no question. He's the one that if he were to step up and take that next level into the ability to off the dribble game, pull up game, the Knicks they'll be contenders right now, in my opinion.
I have to agree. If like I really want to say Mitchell Robinson, but like I feel like I gotta like just to be realistic, because if RJ does take the next leap, even if it's just efficiency, you know what I mean. Just that one area, I think that changes the dynamic of the team and him. You know what I mean. If he's efficient with the same amount of shots, oh my god. But you know what I mean. If he's efficient with less shots, it's still, excuse me, great for the team. I think it changes the dynamic. But I want to say Mitchell Robinson just because if he could give us anything offensively, besides lobs and putbacks, which again, I'm standing on my stance. If he's great at what he does, similar to Josh Hart, if he's great at the things that he's great at, we could be fine. Anchoring the defense, you know what I mean? Like I think he has defensive player of the year potential. You know what I mean? Like top 3, top 4 in votings year in, year out. I think he has that potential. So he can just continue doing what he's doing. But just looking at the star centers throughout the league, it's like, man, if we could get a you know what I mean, a poor man's Jokic. I mean, shout out to Shuttle with Hart Esteem, poor man's Jokic. You know what I mean?
Tony, I think I kind of see where we kind of are looking at the team, and I think we're looking at it from different lenses, obviously, but I think we're looking at it from a different standpoint, right? And I think a lot of the fans in the chat are looking at it kind of similar to you, and I'm just looking at it totally different. I think as Knicks fans, we're so happy and overjoyed that the Knicks are a team that's going to be in the playoffs now, right? We're kind of content in a way. Hold on. Let me finish real quick. Let me just explain to you what I'm saying. We're kind of content because I think you're looking at it from if this player can just do this a little bit more and that player can do this a little bit more, the Knicks it'll be way different. And to me, I just look at it a little bit differently. I think there are some areas in which the Knicks need to make a drastic improvement in the roster. Like to me, this roster that we have, like if players make little tweaks here and there and improve on some of those things that you mentioned, those little small areas, the Knicks, to me, will still be in the same position. I think they'll be a second round out. I don't think they'll be a contender, right? From the way I'm looking at it, if we had a guard or wing player that was dynamic enough in that starting lineup, to me, I think that takes the Knicks to the next level. I don't think those little tweaks here and there with Mitch or with RJ here and there, or if Josh Hart does that a little bit more, that it's going to take the Knicks to the level that I'm thinking about. So that's why I think we defer a bit.
I think we agree. I think we agree. I'm just looking at it like we don't have that guy yet. So in the meantime, continue to grow, continue to get better. So I'm looking at areas that I want the players that we have to improve on. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, because not for nothing, we don't have to be a dynasty for me to be happy. You know what I mean?
Right.
When I want a dynasty? Absolutely.
Right.
But I want to see one first. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I don't care if it's everything fell into place. You know what I mean? The seedings were right. Got a little lucky here, lucky bounce here. You know what I mean? If we get to the championship and win it, I'm satisfied. I don't care how it happens. You know what I mean? I want to enjoy
But
the ride.
I'm just
But I
talking about the way
agree
we get there.
for
I'm talking about how we
perennial.
get there. Yeah, I'm talking about how we get there. Yeah.
But with the star, now we talking about perennial. Now we talking about being there year in and year out. We gotta crawl before we walk. I'm not trying to skip steps. You know what I mean? Let me get to the super chat real quick. Actually, I'm gonna let you read it. It's addressed to you.
Mhm.
Brooklyn
The
Butch. I
Knicks.
appreciate the super chat.
Thanks, Brooklyn Butch. Salute for the file super chat. He said the Knicks are betting on the bench that can average 45 points a game, and Hart is a big part of that for years to come. It's winning basketball. Did the Knicks average 45 points off the bench last season? Was Josh Hart the Knicks' number one scorer off the bench last season? No. Is Josh Hart that type of player? No, he's not. Right? You know, I get it. I mean, as much as we want Josh Hart to be a certain type of player, and as far as scoring, he's not that player. He does different things.
I think, but nobody. That's the difference, though. I don't think we want him to be that. I think we appreciate what he
I
is.
do too. I do too. I just don't think it's worth $20 million a season. That's just where we disagree. I just disagree with that. I want Josh Hart there too. Listen, continuity purposes, I'm all for bringing Josh Hart back. I'm not saying I don't want the guy. I'm not saying he's not valuable. I appreciate what he does. No question about it. I just would rather not pay him $20 million a season. I'm sorry. That's just how I'm looking at it. And, you know, it might affect Quickly's deal. You know, the Knicks are a team that's right now underneath the luxury tax barely, right? And now next season, we're going to have to talk about paying Emmanuel Quickly that contract. If not, then let's say Emmanuel Quickly walks. And then who else are we going to have to dribble the basketball and create off the dribble outside of Brunson from the guard and wing spot? You know?
Oh, East Blue Drew, he said, "Don't speak for me. I'm not content. I want a parade."
I want a parade too. I mean, I just think we differ about how we want to get there. Like, and I believe it or not, Tony. I'm not like saying, you know, we need to just swing for the fences immediately. I'm not saying that we shouldn't crawl before we walk and all that. Right now, listen, the Knicks are in a phase right now where you have to maximize Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle's prime years, right? So right now they're in their prime of their career, right? You know, I wish for the sake of me that the NBA had a hard salary cap and we can keep players on the roster way longer than you know what their contract says, right? But unfortunately, the NBA doesn't work like that. Every couple years, there's always a huge turnover in the NBA, and right now we're all happy and yay, the Knicks are in the playoffs, and we're going to be like this way forever. Players are going to want to get paid.
I mean, you're right, but you've been saying this. This ain't nothing new, right?
Right.
And looking at Randall's contract, which you know, very controversial at the time of his extension.
Not
Was
for
he
me.
worth? No,
Not for
I'm
me.
saying
Yeah.
I'm saying in general.
Mhm.
Even Brunson's signing
Not for me.
controversial at the time. Like, there's a
Yep.
lot of people like, yo, there was a little bit too much. You know what I mean? That's one thing we got to do. We got to start pulling the files and going back. You know what I mean? Because there was a lot of people, and a lot of people admitted it. You know what I mean? It was like,
Yep.
oh, I was wrong. I thought he wasn't worth it.
Yep.
Now he's underpaid.
Right.
So I think, let me ask you this: do you have confidence in the front office that they have a plan and they'll be able to execute it? Because everything they've done, I mean, it's been phenomenal from descending contracts to contracts lining up to be, opt-ins or opt-outs at the same time, structuring, like, like I said, the declining contracts. I think they know what they're doing. They've been, and a lot of it has been questionable at the time. And then it turns out like, they actually, you know what I mean? Like even the Josh Hart contract with that last year being a team option. I mean, I know you said it didn't change anything for you,
Mhm,
but there was a lot of people that was mad just like you. And when they
mhm.
heard about the last year, it was like, oh, you know what I mean? That kind of changes things.
So I am very confident in the front office, right? But I don't want to. I don't want to. I want everyone to be clear on this. Just because I'm confident in the front office does not mean I can't critique, some of the moves that they're making. And I know you're not saying that. I'm just saying, just because I am confident in them, and this is the best front office we've had in a very long time, does not mean I can't be critical and call out something when I see it. 2 years ago, when the Knicks signed Evan Fournier, you were all for it. I wasn't all for it, right? I thought that it would definitely help us, right? But the same concerns that I had about the Josh Hart thing now is what I had about Evan Fournier before, right? And it turned out to come to fruition. Now we can't move. Evan Fournier is not playing, right? We got an $18 million player coming off the bench that we're not even using. And one of the arguments that we have about Josh Hart, well, we can still be able to trade him. We said the same thing about Fournier, and he still hasn't been traded, right? So these are all concerns that I raised, and I've had back then, and I still have right now. I'm confident in the front office. I think they do have a plan. I think they're very, very conservative in their approach. I think they know what they're doing. I like the fact that they're and you can tell that they know what they're doing because they're not even going over the luxury tax. They're very, very strategic in how they do it. Like they could, James don't want to spend the money if the Knicks going to the luxury tax.
Mm-hmm.
He'll spend it. But you can tell the Knicks know what they're doing. The front office knows what they're doing because the way the contract is structured and the salary cap is structured. So they know what they're doing, right? I just question I question a lot of times they're playing with the coach. I do question their plan with the coach, and I question the type of player that they want to bring in, the type of star player that they want to bring in. I question that. But outside of that, I like what they're doing as far as a strategic standpoint and how they're strategizing. But if it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
The whole with the coach thing, if to me, it feels like that was valid with the Cam Reddish trade, the initial trade for Cam Reddish. I think that was a valid point. I don't know if you're referring to that, but as far as like the questioning of were they on the same page with the coach, I feel like as time progressed, they kind of gotten closer together to just saying, all right, well, we got to get him the guys or the type of guys that he wants. So I say that to say, I don't know that the front office will make a big move for a guy that Tibbs doesn't give the stamp to. I think they want to bring in a superstar, but they want to bring in a Tibbs approved superstar. And this is nothing to do with Donovan Mitchell per se. You know what I mean? Because I think he would fit. I'm just saying. I think that's why they're being so strategic or passive in not making that move yet.
Let me ask you a question. If Tom Thibodeau, I think Tom Thibodeau has how many years left to go on his contract? 1 or 2? I think he has 2 more years left to go on his contract, right?
This year and next.
Okay,
this year coming in next.
Let's say whether it be next off season or the off season after that when his contract ends, and Tom Thibodeau is out as a head coach, would you still stand on that same argument, right? Because I'm not under the impression that the Knicks are the front office is doing everything they can to please Tom Thibodeau and bring him the guys and all that stuff. I'm not under that impression. I'm not looking at it that way because I don't think other organizations around the NBA or front offices around the NBA operate with that same mindset unless we're talking about a Miami Heat situation where you're going to have your coach for a long time, or a San Antonio Spurs situation where Popovich, well, hell, he is the general manager.
I think ideally, right? The front office want to keep Tibbs as long as they're there. I think they're ideally. I'm not saying they wouldn't move Tibbs or you know what I mean.
Right.
Obviously, if the next 2 years pass and it's two non-playoff berths and or two early exits, you know that changes things. Now they got to make a decision to make. But I think ideally, if we keep improving, if we go to the playoffs this year and go 7 in the second round or make it to the Eastern Conference Finals, I think we're gonna hear extension talks. You know what I mean?
So I'll agree with you. I'll agree with you if we make it to the Eastern Conference Finals. I'll disagree with you if we get to the second round and lose again. I think Tibbs is on the clock. And that's
I'm,
yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I don't even cut
I
you off.
mean,
But
I specifically says 7. You know what I mean? So if it's
yeah.
a nail biter and we took it to 7 games, they got to look at that as an improvement from last year. You know what I mean?
No,
Like,
not necessarily, because we can get to 7 games and Tibbs can be the reason. And to me, I think he was one of
true,
the biggest reasons
true.
why we lost the series last year. But we can get to 7 games, and in the seventh game, Tibbs makes a ginormous coaching blunder, and we lose that series, and that's a cause for him to get fired, right? So I think you're correct. Ideally, right? And that's why I look at the NBA, and what I try to tell fans is these players that we got on the roster and how the roster is currently constructed, with all of these guys here on the contract, they're not going to be here forever. There's a lot of turnover in the NBA, not just with players, but more so with coaches, right? So it's very difficult as a fan, right? And I'm being very empathetic and sympathetic to the fan base. I'm a fan too. We think that what we got right now is what we're always going to have, and Josh Hart is going to be a Knick, longer than his contract, and we're going to keep some of these same players around. There's a lot of turnover in the NBA. We see every particular offseason, something happens that we don't necessarily expect to happen from any team, right? And boom, it changes the course of the NBA for a long time, right? We cannot get caught in this moment of thinking that the players that we have on this current roster right now, particularly the kids, yeah, we're going to have them around and they're going to be career Knicks and all of that stuff. Like, there's going to be a lot of turnover in the NBA. And I just want Knicks fans to kind of expect that the Knicks are also prone to that same reality, right? I know idealistically we wouldn't want that to happen, and we hope that the front office doesn't want that to happen. But I just think in the NBA, because things are so volatile, the market is so volatile, that those things can happen. Particularly with a new CBA coming in there, we just gotta expect that reality. So I think more so with coaches, that the coaching thing in the NBA, you got guys that went to the NBA finals, right? That were out of a job the next season, right? For one reason or another, that won the NBA finals and they were out of a job next season, right? So I think more so with coaching is very much so volatile. So I struggle with the notion that the Knicks front office is doing everything they can to please Tibbs. I don't think it works that way. I think it's more
No. That's not what I'm saying though. I'm saying they're they're taking his insight more as opposed, like, we're not gonna see a Cam Reddish type trade again. You know what I'm saying? Now it's going to be a guy that they know Tibbs is going to utilize. Tibbs is going, like, he's going to get the stamp. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying he's the decision maker. And if he
No,
said,
I know what you're saying. You're saying
you know what I mean?
he's a part of the process, and it's a guy that Tibbs is going to play. Again, I mean, idealistically, ideally that's what we want to happen. I just don't think that's necessarily the reality all the time in the NBA and on the Knicks.
No.
Fournier was supposed to be a guy that Tibbs was going to play. He's not even playing now.
I mean, it's rumored that was a Tibbs guy. Tibbs wanted him.
Right. And now he's not playing.
But that's a Tibbs decision. That's not the, you know what I mean? Like, Tibbs, if once he did that to Rose, it's up for anybody.
But Tony, that's my point though. That's my point. Initially, let's say the front office is going to take what Tibbs say, and at the moment that he wants those guys. He wants the Derrick Rose. He wants the Taj Gibson. He wants an Evan Fournier. Right. That stuff changes. That's very volatile. Those decisions are very volatile, and they change every single year. Right. So that's what I'm saying. Even though they may take into account what Tibbs has to say, like you're saying, in the moment, as time goes on, things change. Right. And again, I think that they're not necessarily doing things. And I know you're not saying this, but I just want to reiterate: the Knicks are not doing anything to necessarily please Tibbs and saying, "Well, he's definitely going to play this guy, so let's go out and get him." I think that the Knicks front office is doing whatever they can to build a team under the constraints of the CBA from a strategic perspective to stay underneath the luxury tax or maybe go over it or what have you, and then Tibbs has to adjust his mindset off of that, right? At the same time, taking into account what he has to say, but ultimately, I think that they're doing it. That stuff can change, is what I'm trying to say.
I mean, I semi agree with you. Let me shout out oh shoot. Knicks are nice. He says nobody liked the Fournier deal. I'm going on record and being honest. I did like the Fournier deal at the time.
Yep, we argued about it. I remember.
I argued about it. I argued for Kimba as well. That's more because I'm a Bronx native more than anything, and I literally watched him growing up like in 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 the Bronx. So that was my I gotta be honest though. Like a lot of people don't want to admit when they was wrong about something. I was wrong. I thought he could be useful. Oh, speaking of which, Fournier came out and said, "Hey, I guess I'll play for the Knicks if they want to keep me." I thought it was hilarious. You know what I mean? Somebody must have asked him, and he's like, I guess I'll be fine there if they want me. I don't know if that means the writing's on the wall, and they did everything they could to move him, and nobody nobody bought. But my question is, do you see him getting a fair shake, a fair opportunity if he's on the roster moving
No,
forward? No.
no, no. I think the writing's already on the wall in regards to having Fournier. I think with the emergence of a lot of the young guards and wings that we have, particularly Grimes, we're talking about quickly. I think Deuce McBride is, because the Knicks drafted Deuce McBride. I think this was the plan all along from a front office perspective, at least, and maybe from a Tibbs perspective. Who knows, right?
DiVincenzo.
DiVincenzo and all of that. I think the writing's on the wall with Fournier. I don't think he's going to get a fair shake, so to speak.
So if he's so you think if we can't move him, obviously you think he just sits on the bench the whole year?
Yeah, I mean I think the Knicks will find a way to move him. I think they'll find a way to move it. I'm banking on the Knicks finding a way to move Evan Fournier. And if not, then we'll just let his contract expire. We got $18 million coming off the books, but ideally, I would like the Knicks to be able to make a trade and trade him because he is an expiring contract. Now, here's the thing that people have to realize. Let's say the Knicks don't trade him by the deadline, right? And then come the offseason, the Knicks can still be able to move him. Like right after the trade deadline, once the trade market opens back up. Yeah. However, what has to happen is the Knicks will have to guarantee his contract for the next season because you can't trade.
Well, no, the team trading for him has to guarantee it.
Well, either way,
that's
Knicks,
what I'm saying. But yeah,
either way, that's what I'm saying. His contract has to be guaranteed by whatever team is taking him on in order for the Knicks to be able to facilitate that deal before a certain July, whatever the date is, before the new league year. Before the new league year,
essentially, right? So it'll be an expiring contract next year
for the following season.
They're taking on the money for the year.
Correct, but that is a very, very tight window between the end of the league year, like the end of the NBA Finals, which is in June, whatever, to July 1st.
I mean,
that is a short period of time.
The window really isn't short because essentially they just opt to keep him, and then he's an expiring contract, and you can still move him. You just, or be stuck with him. You know what I mean? So the window is not really the issue. It's the risk. You know what I mean? Essentially, they could because they could have did the same thing with Derrick Rose.
Right.
You know what I mean? This year.
Right, but I'm saying ideally they would, because they wouldn't want the money on their books, right? If that's the case, they wouldn't want the money on their books. So I'm saying that window is very, very short in order for them to prevent that from happening. But you're correct. In theory, you are correct.
Because I'm looking at it this way. I mean, granted, I'm not looking at luxury tax and all that stuff. I know you are more in tune with that. But especially this year with Rose, I was like, keep them both. You know what I mean? And have both of those large contracts as the majority of the money for a big move. You know what I mean? Like, to me, that was a no-brainer. Obviously, they didn't want to pay the tax. They wouldn't have been able to get DiVincenzo. You know what I mean? Yep. Hart would have had no incentive to opt in.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. So
yep.
again, in hindsight, I get it. I understand everything they did, and it goes back to that front office just being savvy, being smart.
Strategic. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you might not see it when the news breaks. Give it a week. You know what I mean? Give it 5 days. You're gonna get some details and be like, oh, I see what they did.
No, but Tony, real quick, and I don't want to get very too far off topic, but I'll say I think previous regimes had their own strategy as well, right? And I don't think it was this particular strategy, but I think it was different. The thing is, it just didn't work, right? It just didn't work, and they deserve their share of criticism for that. They deserve a lot of blame for that, right? And I will be just as fair. I know you can't see it, and I already know me and you're going to disagree with what I'm about to say. If this strategy does not work, I'm coming down on this regime too. I'm coming down on them if it doesn't work. Whether or not they had the best of intentions, whether or not what they did was very strategic and savvy, as you put it, if it doesn't work, they're going to deserve some blame too, right? But I'm not even going to put that negative energy out there.
Yeah, I was gonna say
I'm not even going to put it out there.
it's tough to even fathom it because to this point, it's work. When I say work, it's not a finished product. We ain't win the chip, but everything is. You know what I mean? Like you could, it just feel different. You know what I mean? It
We're winning. We're winning games. We're winning games. That's what it comes down to. We're winning.
It's different throughout the league when they talk about us. You know what I mean? Like even some of the people that still want to hate, it's not the same tone. You know what I mean? It's
and
more
I think it's because we're winning games. We're winning.
Yeah,
that's
it's more like, oh, I don't believe, or people just prefer not to say anything because they can't think of nothing negative to say. The Giannis news, right? I know that was circulating. I seen all types of headlines. Knicks, Lakers on the list, on his list. I don't know where that came from. It started with the Knicks and Lakers are monitoring the Giannis situation. Next thing you know, people flipping it to he wants the Knicks, etc., etc. But I got a couple of questions for you. I know the Knicks are definitely monitoring. Shout out to what's his name, Shams. He put out the little tweet talking about his brother his brother quoting his brother saying he was close to re-signing with the Knicks. You know what I mean? Ultimately, he decided to go back to Milwaukee and play with his brother. Like, now maybe this is just him trolling because it's so particular, right? Obviously, I want to play with my brother, so I decided to re-sign with the Bucks, and then obviously the Knicks interested in re-signing him to allure him to maybe, allure Giannis in the future, which I think was the plan when they drafted him in the first place. You know what I mean? Let's get this guy under wraps, or maybe they was looking at it like maybe if he's half his brother, you know what I mean? We got to start. But my question to you is, if the Joel Embiid deal is on the table and the Giannis deal is a year away, but there's potential for it to happen, do you go for the Embiid deal now, or do you wait the year and see if you could get the Giannis deal done?
I mean, I'm for either one of those. I mean, we're talking about two MVP candidates in the prime of their career.
I mean, but
so
there's a risk in waiting, obviously. That's so I'm saying.
Oh yeah, of course.
So if you're the GM and you got a 90% chance of getting Giannis in a year, he says, I'm not gonna make no decision until a year. But in a year, it's if things ain't looking right, I'm out of here. But the Joel thing is on the table right now. You go for the right now?
Absolutely, because again, the NBA is so volatile. You never know what can happen a year from now. You just don't know. I'm shooting for the right now. That's how you have to operate in today's NBA. In regards to star players, if something is there, you jump at it. Now, I'm not saying overpay, right? I mean, listen, you're talking about two MVP candidates every single season, and Giannis could have won the MVP this past year. I mean, come on, like his numbers were crazy. But again, the NBA is so volatile that I think you have to take the deal that's in front of you, or you'll at least be, interested in the deal that's in front of you, and you can't play for a year down the road because of you never know what team might come out of nowhere and get their package up. You never know if Milwaukee might necessarily get their act together. And I still think Milwaukee's a championship contender, right? I still think Giannis has ties there. He was drafted there, so I think there's that aspect of it. Supermax contracts and stuff like that. So no, I don't. For me, if I'm the Knicks, I don't wait around. I think if you got an MVP sitting in front of you, you go look to make that move. Now, for either player, whether we're talking about Giannis or Embiid, the Knicks are still going to need a wing player to come in and pair with them, in my opinion, to play because, again, I don't think, and one of the biggest reasons why Philly hasn't won is they don't have that. Harden, I like Harden. You know what I mean? I'm all for Harden, but he couldn't get it done for them in the playoffs. But the Knicks are going to need a wing player to put next to him. To both guys. So there's still going to be something else they're going to have to do afterwards. But I think if the move is right there in front of you, you take what's in front of you to get. Both players are MVPs. It's hard to argue what player is better than the other one.
Which one's which guy's the better fit? If both guys are on the table right now, same package for either one. It's tough because injury concerns with Embiid is so, you know what I mean? But they only a year apart in age. People act like Giannis is so much younger. He's a year younger.
So I personally, I don't look at it. That's not a question I would ask. Well, which one is the better fit? Because you get those guys, and you're going to put players around them to fit with them. I don't think it's the other way around. So I think
which one are you choosing? You the GM. The same deal is on the table for both guys, and you gotta make a decision.
And they're both available right now.
Right now.
Giannis. I'm taking Giannis. Yeah, I'm taking Giannis. I'm taking Giannis.
Okay.
I don't know why. I don't necessarily know why. I don't know. It's not. See, the injury concerns for Embiid for me are not like, I think if Embiid had a similar team like Milwaukee had, I think Embiid would be an NBA champion. So I don't think
I'm going with him. I'm going with Embiid, to be honest.
Okay, fair enough. I can't really argue.
I think the chat thinks Giannis as well, but I'm saying healthy. You know what I mean? Because that's my only problem with Embiid. I think that's the problem why he doesn't seem to have that Giannis type energy. You know what I mean? I think he's reserved. Like he doesn't want to get injured. You know what I mean? Like, and he's doing what he's doing based off talent, but it's not I don't want to say passive, because he has his moments where he's aggressive, obviously. It's just not like Giannis every possession on 100. You know what I mean? Like there's times when Embiid might be at 60. You know what I mean? But he's still dominant at 60. That's the thing. But I'm going Embiid. I would go Embiid, to be honest. A big that stretch the floor. You know what I mean?
You can go either way. You can go either way, in my opinion. You really can.
I'm banking on the first 2 years of him not playing, giving him an extra 2 years down the road.
I mean, Embiid has played though. He hasn't played as much as Giannis, but he's played.
No, I'm saying the first 2 years he didn't play at all. So I'm you know what I mean? Like, so I'm hoping those 2 years of not playing, you know what I mean, that's less wear and tear for you know what I mean. It's a 10-year career, but played 8.
I'm just I'm looking at it from the perspective of, I think the era of the ball dominant NBA center is over in the NBA. Like as far as championship, I think that era is over. And people are gonna say, well, what about Jokic, right? Jokic didn't take the majority of Denver's shots last season, right? It was a split between him and Murray during the regular season. I think Murray took that title, right? And Jokic is much more involved in the passing game, right? Jokic is much more of a, believe it or not, old school big man, right? Than Embiid is. Embiid is more of that Shaq era where you got the center dominating, all of the shots. And Jokic is more of like a Tim Duncan-esque kind of player. Now, granted, Shaq, Tim Duncan, toss up. I mean,
I mean, I wouldn't put him in. To be honest, I think he's just at the top of the Euro big man. You know what I mean? Like, think of. I mean, you go back to Sabonis. I don't. You probably too young to know.
Nah, I know Sabonis.
Sabonis Senior, but
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Vladi. You know what I mean? Like
Vlade Divac.
The European bigs. Like, that's how they play. I think he's just. I wouldn't put him on the Duncan tier.
No. I'm talking about the style of play, not the tier. This is a style of play. Like, he's more of the old school big man. Doesn't necessarily need to take all their shots. But he's so involved in everything that they do offensively, not just with scoring, but he's the assist machine. You know what I'm saying? You put him there, they can run plays off of him. Sabonis, the new Sabonis, kind of plays the same way. Obviously not as good.
Yeah, and obviously not as tall. If he was 7, you know what I mean, legit 7 foot,
right?
I think he would be getting that same type of praise,
right?
You know what I mean. But
I think, and that's why I go back to, I don't think you can win in today's NBA if you have a center or a point guard. Let me just put that out there: a center or a point guard taking well over the majority of your shots. I don't think you're going to win in today's NBA. I think you have to have a wing or a guard or two guard that's taking the majority of your shots.
I mean, Denver just won, and they two. You just said that point guard and center were their two leaders. Shot takers.
But I said overwhelming majority. Like, Embiid takes an overwhelming majority of Philly's shots. That's not Jokic. Jokic is not taking an overwhelming majority. Him and what's the name are tied.
And I think, I mean, obviously we don't have, I mean, a Jokic. I would argue maybe biased, but I'd argue Brunson is on the same tier, if you know what I mean, of a Murray. So we don't have a Jokic. I mean, I'm a homer. What can I say?
Right.
What can I say? But I'm making that argument and I'm standing on it. But my argument, what I was gonna say is, if you look at that roster, right, and the way it's built, it's just beautifully constructed. Like the same type of flaws that you point out in a Josh Hart. I mean, they got guys like that on that squad as well, but it's not. It's their strengths that mix so perfect with the team that the weaknesses don't, you know what I mean, don't really affect. I think that's kind of what the Knicks. Not saying they following Denver's blueprint, but I think that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to put that perfect blend, that perfect
Denver
mixture.
has ball handlers, though, Tony. They have ball handlers. Michael Porter Jr. is a ball handler who can create his own shot, right? Go off the dribble, pull up. He's that type of wing player that the Knicks don't have. And I get what you're saying. The Knicks just don't have those types of players. They're missing that piece. They're missing a piece like that. They don't have that.
We're missing a Jokic. We miss.
Well, that too.
I think. Well, I'm making an argument that we're missing the big more than we're missing the wing. I know a lot of everybody said we need the wing. I think we need the big that could stretch the floor a little bit. That could provide
you giving
some
up
offense.
On Mitch now?
I'm not. Mitch is like, I told you, Mitch is like Hart. What he does is he's great at, and we need that. Anchors the defense, all that. But you know what I mean? We need a change of pace also. You know what I mean? I'm not saying get rid of Mitch, but if we bring somebody in that could do what Mitch does and the offensive end, that's a bonus, man. That's a plus. You know Mitch is my guy. You know that. But I was arguing. I was this close. I was very high on Miles Turner, just because I think he brings a lot of the defensive intangibles that Mitchell Robinson does, and then he just stretches the floor completely. And will open up the paint. Go ahead. I see you start stuff, and I don't think you got to the one you had earlier. So
no, I got it. I'm about to bring it up right now, real quick, Tony. I don't want to be on too long. I know this is supposed to be
we about to get out of here. We about to get out of here.
So salute Dwayne Dennis. You said they know what they're doing, Uncle Fulil, but you think Josh Hart contract is bad. You're contradicting yourself. Just because I think they know what they're doing does not mean I can't criticize certain moves that they make. I'm not saying that they have to be perfect, right? Like you just because I think a team, a front office or something is going well, does not mean I think it's perfect. And you have a right to be criticized. You have a right. Certain moves have a right to be criticized, right? I'm not going to agree with everything they do just because I think they're a good front office.
It's
right?
a fine line. Like it's not like I wouldn't say it's a bad deal. I think it's a good deal. I also wouldn't say it's a steal. You know what I mean? Like so
Right.
I think you know what I mean. There's level to it. I think when people hear bad, you know what I mean. Now they associating it with. I mean, you kind of stood on it, but they associated it with Fournier. You know what I mean? They associated with lack of production, lack of impact, lack of you know what I mean, lack of playing time.
No, but
So
he's saying because I'm contradicting myself because I think they know what they're doing, but at the same time, I think a certain move that I didn't necessarily agree with, like that's a contradiction. That's not a contradiction. That's just me not agreeing with a certain thing that they did. Now they may know what they're doing, and it may or may not work out, right? But at the time, I'm going to be honest and say that I don't necessarily agree with the particular move. I'm not going to say, well, I'm going to agree with the move because I believe that they know what they're doing. No, I'm going to express my opinion on that. That's not a contradiction. And I think a lot of times, what Brooklyn Butch or what Dwayne Dennis is saying, I don't think that's a contradiction at all. So that's where I'm coming from.
I think each time you guys specified it's the money and throw your dollar amount out there because I think when they hear bad contract, they just looking at bad contracts throughout the league and I don't think he's included in the what's that word? The atrocities. You know what I mean? Like I don't think he's one of those contracts.
R. Dela Cruz, Jokic takes more shots. Steph Curry takes more shots in this team. Also, that's 5 rings right there. The difference between Steph Curry, right? Steph Curry is a point guard, right? Good point, right? But guess what? They lead the league in assists every year. They move around. They share the basketball, right? A lot of people get shots. Steph Curry may take majority of the shots on the team as a quote unquote point guard, but their offense is so fluid. They run a specific style of offense that allow other people to get touches, right? And they're efficient with what they do. So not everybody can be like Golden State. I'm not asking the Knicks to be like Golden State, right? But the way the Knicks run their offense right now, from a half court perspective, I just don't think in today's NBA, if the Knicks had Embiid, and they give up a lot of the pieces that they have, that we can win a championship with Embiid taking majority of the shots. I think he'll be a big factor, but I still think we need a wing player to go with him. So that's just my opinion on that. And then last thing I'll say for Kevon Bergen, he said with the wing we're a serious contender. I agree. I think that's the one piece, wing/guard, whether it be 2 guard or whether it be 3. If we have a dynamic player at that position with what we currently have, which is why I was a fan of the Zach LaVine move. I think if Paul George was 5 years younger and much more healthier, I would be all in on Paul George, right? I think Zach LaVine was the perfect piece and that we could have got him without giving up as much as we would have given up for the other players. I think he would have been perfect with this particular team based on the way he plays and his ability to be dynamic. But obviously we don't have him. But I agree with you, Kevon Bergen. I think that's what this Knicks team is missing.
I like both of those guys, and I was an advocate for both of them. I think I have too much faith in guys like IQ. I think he's gonna be a star. Hopefully, it's here. But if it ain't, I'll root for him from afar. I got high hopes for Grimes as well. I really think it's the big that you know what I mean. Open up the floor for RJ. Open up the floor for Randall. But I ain't mad at a wing at all. I'm not. You know what I mean? I just don't think we're a finished product there.
R. Dela Cruz, I'm not moving the goalpost at all. I mean, listen, I get it. Every time you say something, well, you give me these examples, but I think not everybody can be Golden State. If everybody can be Golden State, everybody will win championships. Like Golden State is a special kind of organization. Steve Kerr does a phenomenal job with them. When you say superstars win rings, I mean, listen, majority of superstars in the league right now are from the guard and wing position.
That's true.
Period. Point blank. The majority of the rings come from the guard and wing position.
But the last couple MVPs is bigs.
That's true. But winning MVP doesn't necessarily guarantee you to win a championship. We're
I
talking about
mean,
champions here. So,
I mean,
and listen, I'm not opposed to bringing in
Joel the
Embiid.
only one that ain't with it. That ain't with it, and he just got the MVP. So you know what I mean.
And he could have
Maybe
won two more. Could have won two more the previous season. So
that's a fact. That's a fact.
yeah.
Nah, this was fun, man. This the new series. I'm gonna try to keep them on Wednesdays, 1-on-1. Josh, the first guest. Appreciate you for spending some time with me, giving all your Nick takes. Anything that we didn't touch on, you want to touch on real quick that we missed. DiVincenzo contract, whatever, anything. USA.
Yeah. Couple things. One, in regards to DiVincenzo, the Knicks again, he is another piece that the Knicks are bringing in for continuity purposes. I can still think this team is missing another ball handler. I think once we get that other ball handler in there, we can be able to go to the next level. It doesn't necessarily have to be a star. If we can get another ball handler from the guard or wing spot that can knock down some shots, I think that can definitely help us and move us in the right direction. Hopefully, RJ Barrett takes that step. I don't think DiVincenzo is that guy. I think DiVincenzo is a bench piece to come and knock down some shots. He has an injury history, by the way, but I'm not even going to depend on that. I still think the Knicks are missing that piece. I'm not necessarily against DiVincenzo, but the Knicks need another ball handler point blank. And the second thing that I'll say, I agree with Evan Fournier and Noah Lyles. I think that world champions have to be when they play international play. I don't think that the NBA champions should be world champions. I don't agree with that, and that's why they don't call them that. They say NBA champions, and in hockey, they say Stanley Cup champions. Baseball is the only sport in which someone is saying it's the World Series, but I guarantee you there's a team in DR right now that'll bust the Yankees' ass right now. I promise you that. So, so no, I think that you play international sports, and that's determines the world champion.
I think I wish we had a whole another show because I disagree. I get the sentiment and I get the accurately, yes, they're not world champs. But when you look at I think both Major League Baseball and the NBA, but in particular the NBA, all the best players from around the world are in the NBA. So I think it's if you want to call yourself a world champion, I don't think it should bother a Olympic runner. You know what I mean? I think he was just trying to. I think like to say this really pisses you off as an Olympic runner. I think you was just trying to have a moment, and I think you know what I mean. Like if it was a basketball team that said it, then I think there's a fair debate if you want to debate it.
Well,
You know what I mean?
Popovich said it 2
But
years ago. Greg
no,
Popovich
no,
said it 2 years ago.
no, yeah, he did, and he doubled down. But I think this is fair to if you want to call yourself the world champ. I ain't mad at you because you playing against the best players in the world, and if you happen to play against like you said about there's some team in DR that can beat the Yankees, you won't say that about some team in anywhere in the world that's gonna beat the NBA team. You know what I mean? So to me, that's the difference.
No, I get it, and that's a huge difference, and that's a good point. I'm just using that argument with in regards to baseball, in regards to people saying the best players in the world here and there and all that stuff. I get that. Yes, the best players in the world do play in the NBA, but tell me why is it that you have a player from, let's say, Latvia, right? Any player from Latvia, he can come to a team that plays for the city of Los Angeles, win a championship there, then go and play for a team in Cleveland, Ohio, and then win a championship there. He's considered a world champion for 2 straight years. 2 straight years, right? And then you have a team that is full of players from all over the place, all over the globe, playing another team from players from all over the globe. To me, I don't think that's a world champion. I think that is an NBA champion. If the NBA is recruiting and they're bringing in players from all over the world, that's one thing. I still think you're not considered a world champion unless you have a team of players from the same place playing against a team from another place, and then in a tournament style or whatever, and then that determines the championship of the world.
But
to me, I think that's
they don't gotta recruit because everybody everywhere wants to come. They don't gotta recruit.
I'm saying recruit, the NBA has the best infrastructure as far as a league compared to any other league, basketball league around the world. So when I say recruit, I mean players are coming over here to play in the NBA because the NBA has the best infrastructure as far as the league is concerned, right? And then the best players come. So obviously, it's the greatest league around the world. I'm not disputing that part. When I say recruit, I'm saying that you have a team in Los Angeles that's recruiting a player from or any organization for that matter. Let's say players enter in the draft. They are bringing in players from around the world, singular players to come play. Now, if you want to say that the individual players themselves are the best players in the world, I have no problem with that, right? But to say that the team is the best team in the world, that I have an
No, no,
issue
no,
with
no.
because you're not playing against other teams
But
from around the world.
I don't think the argument is being part of the team and getting that ring. Yeah, I'm calling myself a world champion. I don't care if I didn't play. I'm on the team. I got a ring.
Yeah,
But
I just
you know
don't
what I
agree
mean?
with
Like,
that.
but
I just don't agree with
I
that.
mean, but I think it was great. He had his moment.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of the league didn't like it. Man, it was one thing I wanted to bring up. It was about the league. It wasn't about the Knicks. What the hell was it? Oh man, I lost it. You threw me off.
Tony, last thing I'll say is I just want to thank everybody. Again, just like I led off with the show, from reaching out to me. I know I had a lot of things go on in my life. Personally, there was a lot of people that reached out to me, kind of missing me. Josh, where you been? Where you been? I had a lot of things go on. I'm better now, I would say, but I really appreciate the people that reached out to me, seeing how I was going during that period. It really meant a lot. Trust me, I haven't been on, but I have been paying attention to a lot of the takes. Disagree with a lot of things. I was just dying, itching to get on, but I had to take care of myself first, make sure myself was right before I was able to get back on. So I really appreciate it. I'm excited to be back and look forward to some of the content that I got coming in the future. I'm still getting that kind of set up, getting my bearings back with that. But I'm coming, ladies and gentlemen, and when I'm coming, be ready. I'm
Josh,
not gonna hold back.
I didn't see a single tomato in the chat today. Not one. So they miss you. I'm assuming they miss you. You know, they didn't want to bombard you with the tomatoes. Now I appreciate you for jumping on with me. First guest again. You know what I mean? One-on-one series. I'll do this on Wednesday. I miss Knicks and Bruises on Monday. I should be back this Monday, even though I'm on vacation and I'm trying to have some fun. But I'm gonna be back for you guys. Appreciate you guys in the chat jumping in. Replay gang. Appreciate y'all. Shout out to Sim, the Queen, Ron, John, MVK, Gmo, Freezy, everybody, Andy, Savvy, everybody, man. We out of here. See y'all next week. Peace.